Kevin Hunter and Adam Wallschlager here on the Business Forum Show, and today we're going to talk about positional agreements. If you have any questions about any of the topic matter that we cover here, you can reach Adam at ActionCoachMN.com, so make sure you do that following the show. So where would you like to start, Adam? These positional agreements actually have a fair amount of content in them and considerations in writing them up. Where do you want to start?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the place I would start is just how important they are. I think a lot of businesses have something somewhat close, right? They put an advertisement out, on Indeed or LinkedIn or something like that, and it gives a general idea of what the job is. And then they come in for an interview, and again, the job is explained. You'll do this, that, and the other thing, and then they get hired. And maybe, and this isn't true of all businesses, maybe there's some sort of training plan that walks them through the things that they'll be doing. But at the end of the day, there's really not a whole lot of clarity on what your job is supposed to look like on a daily, weekly, and monthly basis, let alone what it means to be winning, right? So I think it was the Entree Leadership book by Dave Ramsey where I first heard that concept is your team needs to know what winning looks like. And if you were to go and poll your employees and say, define what winning looks like on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, I would guess that most people wouldn't know how to answer that question. They kind of show up to work and know generally what they're supposed to be doing, but they don't go home feeling like, yes, today I won.
Oh, totally. And you know what? That is such a game changer for the business that figures that out. When your employees do know how to win and they actually know what missed opportunities are costing, most importantly, the company, but ultimately come around to costing them. The more of that kind of information they have in their hands, it's absolutely amazing. Just a really quick side story in a long-term established organization that had just barely been on the cusp of breaking even, a little bit better than breaking even for many, many years, 19-year history. The moment the management team figured out how to show people in the plant what it was they were contributing to the bottom line, in a calendar year, their profits almost tripled when they're able to show people that. So I just blown away by how important it is and how often it's neglected.
Yep, absolutely. And I would say ActionCoach was one of the first companies that I worked with where the clarity on what I was responsible for and expected and how I was measured, it was one of the first places where I really got that. It was, all you need to do is do this, this, and this. And here's how it funnels into the business. Here's how your role is affected and affects other people. And I was just like, oh, I got it. That makes total sense. And because I didn't have to think about it anymore, I could just go out and execute it.
So if an organization is thinking about hiring somebody, they have a position that's open, or maybe they have an established position they're going to hire somebody new for or whatever, and they haven't done any of this, when do you recommend they actually write a positional agreement?
Did you say when?
When, yes.
It depends. Like for example, if it's more of a startup business and there's just an employee, you or just the business owner, you could write it up ahead of time. And I would probably suggest people take a stab at it. But a lot of times, if that role that is a new role and it's a little unclear, you could actually work with that person that gets hired to help design the role and help refine it, and then put a more official agreement in place. And then obviously both people can sign it. Because again, to be honest, a lot of times the business owner doesn't know exactly what that role is going to look like. The benefit of doing it this way is most businesses, if you're familiar, if the people are familiar with the E-Myth book, is they talk about delegation by abdication, right? So a business owner is so busy that they hire a salesperson or an admin or an office staff, and they just say, all right, you got it. I don't know how to do any of that stuff, but you got it, and go figure it out. That's not a great idea either, because when that person starts dropping balls, the business owner doesn't really know what they were doing or how they were doing it. So there needs to be a little bit of a partnership in designing that role.
You're in a pretty weak position for criticizing the employee for not doing what you expected. We don't have any of this laid out either.
Exactly. Well, yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Another point when you're mentioning about how you could bring the person on board if you're in that situation and develop this positional agreement with that, the other benefit of doing it in that way, and in that scenario, is that you may run into somebody who has skills and talents that you didn't expect when you hired them on. And I think about people that I've had working for me in the past, and it's like, wow, you're able to do that as well too. And so this thing that you start with morphs into a much grander scale, so to speak, because you were hoping for X and you end up getting X, Y, and Z with a really great person. And so that could be beneficial too.
Absolutely. I'm a huge fan. If we just had one of our clients who was looking to hire an admin, and he really liked two of the individuals. One was very much cut out to be the admin role, and he just was very confident that she would not only be able to handle the things he needed, but be able to expand that position like you're talking about. And then another person, again, could probably be good at some of the office admin, but had a little bit more of a outgoing personality, a bubbly personality. And he said, hey, maybe we could use that person as more of a marketing, talking to people, right? So he was trying to figure those things out. But ultimately, a good place to start, even before talking about the positional agreement, is really coming up with an org chart, right? So most business owners, they're doing a little bit of everything. But again, referring back to that E-Myth book, I love how he lays out the idea of create an organizational chart for all the different roles that would make your business run now, 6 months from now, and maybe 5 years from now, just so you have this idea. So right now you start off by putting, like, let's say, Kevin, you're the business owner, you put your name in every single one of those boxes, right? You're responsible for the sales, for the operations, for the social media marketing, for the bookkeeping. You're responsible for everything. So let's say you find someone to come in to do the office admin, the office manager job, but they can also do social media. Well, maybe now that they actually take two boxes. But again, each one of those boxes is going to be very clear and have a separate positional agreement.
Bingo. So we have the background here, the elements of a positional agreement here. Discuss why each of these pieces are important.
Sure. I mean, obviously the top one is purpose. They need to know how their role functions, and you said this a minute ago, how their role functions into the greater purpose of the business, right? We had that happen recently. I was going to go visit some businesses in the community and try to, obviously drum up new business. But I saw how some of my teammates, like Carmen, were able to go through and pick out the businesses, put the plan in place of where I was going to go, when I was going to go, and all that sort of stuff. And it really helped me see that, okay, my role is to go introduce myself. But if I don't go out and do it, I've wasted all of my team's effort and work getting that set up. So it's the purpose of this role and how it fits into the greater plan of the company. The scope obviously is letting them know what they're all accountable for, right? If you just say you're responsible for everything that I'm not doing, that's not really a scope, right? So you have to lay out the general places that they will be responsible for. And I love on this note, I love the word ownership, right? So you own that responsibility. It doesn't mean that you're the one that has to actually execute every single part of it, but you own the results, right? So if you need the business owner to help you do something or another team, that's fine. You could delegate and loop them in, but you ultimately own it. I mean, so many times you'll leave a meeting, a team meeting, and it's like, well, wait a minute, that was a great idea, but who's doing that again, right? No one raises their hand. So knowing the scope of the position, and then really laying down the duties and responsibilities. Usually that's anywhere from 3 to 7. You don't want to have less than that, but once you start getting more, now they're responsible for just way too much, right? The skills that go into it, you'd think that was talked about ahead of time, but if not, this is where you want it, and what skills they'll need to accomplish these roles. Again, as you go down this list, you're thinking, we want our employees to have total clarity about their role, how they're winning, what's expected, and all that stuff. So the other expectations that are included, their attitudes, right? You don't want to bring someone on to do a job and they can do it, they have the skills for it, but their attitude isn't something that fits in with the team. Again, you'd probably hopefully have that figured out during the interview, but if not, this is the place to do it. Knowing the salaries and benefits, it's actually pretty amazing how many times a client will be hiring for a position and they'll get all the way up to hiring them, and they'll be like, okay, we need to discuss, Adam, what you think their salary and benefits. It's like, oh, wait, this person's ready to come on board. They don't even know what they're getting paid. I think that's probably a good thing overall, that they're willing to join the team without knowing that. But you want to know how they're going to be compensated. That, so many times you'll get into a relationship where it's like, hey, we'll take care of you, we'll figure it out. It's like, no, they need to know exactly how to get to the next levels, the next, commissions, whatever that looks like.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, one of the things that I wanted to just mention is that, and I think maybe companies should consider, even teaching a little bit on this principle, because it actually worked so well in a military standpoint. But the Army uses this phrase called implied task. And I really loved it because it made you think a little bit about so when you write out duties, responsibilities, etc., or you're even giving somebody a task to do in a organization that falls within these scope of duties and responsibilities. It's important as an employee, and then it's also important as an employer to think about what might have also been part of the implied tasks that might be associated with those things, and have discussion around those things, because it's not important that this document, of course, have every T crossed and every I dotted. But, maybe a classic example of an implied task, if you have a big office space and your boss asks you, hey, is Fred in? And you walk down to Fred's office, walk back and say, yeah. Well, the implied task might have been your boss wanted to see Fred, and you're supposed to return with Fred on your arm. And so you might want to think a little bit more about, why did he ask about? So if you're not going to just go, the implied task was, I need to bring Fred back, you might, before you head down the hallway, you might ask, would you like me to bring Fred back, or do you just want to know if he's here? So there's little details that go into these things where you don't have to worry about crossing every T and dotting every I, but you should at least have some conversation around what the implied tasks might be associated with these duties and responsibilities.
Sure. And it's funny that I totally agree with what you just said, but it's interesting how I looked at it at the other angle. I thought, as the leader, you really need to know what done looks like.
Right.
Leader will say, hey, go do this, and then they'll get frustrated with their employees' lack of success, and it's like, well, did you tell them what done looked like? Did you say, go check if Fred's there, if he is, bring him down here? You know what I mean? I always just default to the leader doing it, because we all want to make excuses. But I'm really glad that you brought up the military example, because looking through this agreement, a lot of times a business is just so excited to fill that role that they skip over all these details, or an employee is so happy to get hired that they're just like, yeah, sure, yeah, whatever, let's go, let's sign, that it's only a matter of time before it falls out. Well, in the military, you better know exactly what's happening, or people die, right? I mean, it's obviously a very, very big deal. And I think that one of the issues we get into is assuming. We're assuming that we understand, but even people with the best of intentions that are communicating really well can walk away from the same conversation with a completely different assumption, right? And the place I've noticed it is, there's so many businesses will have someone they know, a friend, or even worse, a family member, and they think that because they're related, and they've grown up together, that they know the other person, and the other person, they know what to expect. But the reality is they're assuming so much then, that the reality is they should go the other way. They should be more specific. That's what I've seen. That's my opinion. But anyways, the more specific, the less chance for confusion.
Well, going back to an original comment that you made here in the beginning, is that this is a thing that is widely neglected. And I think about, over my professional life, and I'm 53 years old now, I've had an opportunity to interact with a lot of different people, a lot of different organizations. And I only recall twice in my life ever being trained for a job. Yeah. And the other times you just had to figure it out. But when you mentioned the military, that actually was one of the examples. I mean, you can't even become a private without going through 10 to 14 weeks of basic training. And then, you can't be an officer without going through 15 months of training before you accept the the responsibilities that come along with that job. So there's and of course, in a business world, you go, well, am I going to take somebody out of circulation, for that? No. But I think about some of the really incredible restaurants that I was at Benihana's in Chicago, and I find out that the reason why the chef is so absolutely amazing is that they had a 2.5-month training course they send them off to not only teach them the culinary schools, to add to the experiences that they came in with, but teach them this whole dinner show they're expected to do when they come back to the restaurant. And that was one exceptional chef. So, it made the experience.
As soon as when you said, I've been this many places and it's only been trained twice, right away I started thinking in my head, well, why is that? I mean, if it's so obvious to everyone, why is that? And I think the answer is most businesses small businesses start off with one person. They come up with an idea, they're doing their thing, and they eventually get to the place where they have too much work to handle, so they start hiring people. And it's so busy that no one ever stops to think, hey, we should actually convert this into a real business, not just Kevin running around, hammering a nail or whatever your business might be. And then let's say they come to a business coach and we say, all right, we need to go back to square one and come up with an employee handbook, put positional agreements. And they're like, no, Adam, I need more leads. You don't understand. I'm so busy. And then it's just this, you could see how it happens when you walk it back and see all the steps. So it's very difficult to get people to dive into these details because it's not relevant. It's like selling life insurance, right? How do you position someone to buy something that they cannot feel the pain, the immediate pain, right? So it's just about the best way we do it is explain how this works from start to finish. And if they don't get it, we're going to be stuck.
I would simply offer to them that while they're not feeling the pain right now, they actually are feeling the pain, because when their employees do know what winning looks like, as I've seen in my experience, it will change your bottom line when your people know what winning looks like.
Sure. I like that. That's good.
All right. Well, great stuff on positional agreements. I hope our viewing audience takes this seriously. If you have any questions on constructing a positional agreement, you can find Adam at actioncoachmn.com. I recommend that you get in touch. Kevin Hunter with Adam Wallschlager here on the Business Forum Show. Thanks for joining us.